Hello, hi, Debbie here. Well, in a way, this is a little bit of a test. I wanted to test some of my channeling. I know that in 3 particular videos, I brought in Pythagoras. I didn't particularly call him in, but that's who came through with the message. They're all my videos on 3i Atlas. So what I did yesterday was I went to AI and I asked if Pythagoras was in the room, what's the first 10 questions you would ask? I didn't want to hear those questions because I want them, today will be the first time I've heard them. And so I got my partner to record them. And I have them here on my little recorder thing. So I'm going to go into the channeling state and press play and see how we go. So bear with me. I've not called him in before, so I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. So bear with me. Yes, we are ready for your experimentation, which does not need to be an experimentation because it is something that you know that you can do. But if it helps you, if it makes you feel better, let's call it an experimentation. So fire away.
Hello. I have some questions here for Pythagoras. Number 1 is, do numbers exist independently of the human mind, or do we discover them through consciousness? Were numbers always there, or are they a language our awareness uses to interpret reality?
They are a language in themselves. There have always been methods of counting, even if it has just been with beads. It is something that in one sense we may say 1, 2, 3, in other places.
When you said all is number, did you mean the physical universe or something deeper and metaphysical? Was this a scientific statement, a spiritual one, or both?
It was a bit of all of those, actually. To be honest, it is on a deeper level. Everything is on what you call a spiritual level. And numbers are ways, it is more to do with frequencies. There are different frequencies. You may refer to them with different numbers on those frequencies.
Did you experience mathematics as revelation, intuition, or logical deduction? How did truth appear to you, through reasoning, silence, or mystical insight?
I guess you would call it a little of mystical insight, but that came through by being silent. As I spent time in silence, I felt these experiences, is all I could explain them as, come through the universe, come through me, and they, as I began to express what it is I needed to express, came out in
What is the true relationship between mathematics and harmony? Did you see music and geometry as 2 expressions of the same cosmic order?
Yes, they are 2 expressions of the same cosmic order. They are both related in different ways. Geometric shapes were something that I saw in a kind of a higher vision, you would say. And those in form expressing those came out in
about the soul
mathematics.
that modern humanity has forgotten? Was transmigration symbolic, literal, or a teaching tool?
It was a teaching tool, but our souls are all connected. We are one, and we have always been one. We are experimenting in this way, coming as different forms to express what it is we need to express, to learn what it is that we need to learn, and we take this inwards and adapt it in our inner knowing, and our inner knowing then turns that into the experiences that we need, that is required on this planet in all spaces in order for us to learn and to grow. These symbols came through me and were something that I held inside until I was ready to express.
Why was secrecy so important in your school? Was knowledge dangerous, sacred, or transformative in ways that required preparation?
It was a little of all. It wasn't quite as secret as people taught it was. It was something that was secret, as in it was for the few, for the chosen ones at that time who wished to sink into this beautiful energy that we had between us. And then it no longer became a secret because it was something that needed to be shared with the outside world. And when it was shared with the outside world, there was transformations left, right and centre, as you would say. And it was a word, it was a flow, it was a creation of amazingness that needed to be shared with the world. And as it was shared, people grew and their souls grew. And they became to understand the connection between the different souls and the different higher souls and monads. And the connection then began to appear and was understood by most in what you call the secret
Did you encounter
schools.
ideas in Egypt or Babylon that reshaped your thinking? What did other civilizations understand about numbers and cosmology that Greece later diluted?
Well, a lot was learned in the pyramids. As we know, the pyramids are very special. It was a technology in a way, and the information that comes through the pyramids that can be absorbed when inside of the pyramids or in the vicinity of the pyramids was quite strong. It was something, yes, was diluted a little by the Greeks, but it was because that was a different time, a different space. So when something, it's like what we would call Chinese whispers. As it moves on, it gets a little more twisted, a little bit more diluted in a way. But the actual transference from one time to another was something that was quite important, and it was there exactly how the people of those times needed that information. In its first form, it was quite complicated in a way, so it was diluted in a way for others to help to understand. The channel has not picked up the totality of this question. It was rather lengthy.
Is geometry a map of the universe or the blueprint of consciousness itself? Are shapes like the triangle fundamental because of physics or because of perception?
That's an interesting question, but again, it is a bit of both. Geometry, sacred geometry, there is difference between normal geometry and sacred geometry. And in sacred geometry, so much is in there to just even sit and look at the shapes that will you will start to absorb information that is intertwined in these geometric patterns. I recommend that people do that and absorb what comes through, and they will go into your inner knowing, you've got a big empty space of where all this inner knowing is gathered, and this is how you project your universe. This is what has always been the way that these things happen. This is just coming into understanding at this moment, but it has always been the way. Again, the question was quite lengthy, and the channel herself has not picked up all of the question. Yes. We wait for the next question. Gathering more information from the universe for this purpose. Going deeper. Going deeper.
What is the most misunderstood aspect of your teachings today? If you could correct one misconception about yourself or your work, what would it be?
I think the most misunderstood is where my information came from. In a way, you could say that it came from source. It did not just come through my own, what we would call a human brain. It came from a much higher source. It was consciousness itself, and it was linked, that consciousness was linked not only to myself, it was linked with others, what you would call the lost civilizations, the gods that were worshipped in those times, in the earlier times. We were part of a collective, and that, in a way, I channeled the information in those times. It's not something that came just directly from me in a human form. I tapped into something that was so much bigger, so much stronger, and that's where the information came from. So when people taught that Pythagoras knew everything, it was actually coming from a collective, and that way is the way for much of channeling. It doesn't usually just come from the one person. Hence, in the recordings Debbie has made from about the Triad Atlas, I refer to myself as we. Because I am a collective. I am not just the one being. There are many in my lineage that we are connected to in a much deep and profound way.
What would you want humanity to understand right now? If you looked at our modern world with physics, AI, chaos and noise, what single insight would you offer?
I would tell them to be still and to go within, because that is where everything is stored. That is where everything that you need is inside of you, as it was inside of me. And the more I spent time going within and listening to the most amazing peace and tranquility within, this is where I drew my information from the consciousness, which was condensed inside, where I was able to project it outside. So I would encourage all to, if you want to play with AI, if you want to look at the chaos, do that. But it is better to not spend your time looking at the chaos. Go within and clear the chaos that is within you. And when you clear this chaos, it will clear all of the chaos that is projected in your outside world. This is something that you can do quite simply. It is something that will help you raise your consciousness, raise it to heights that you can only imagine. In fact, to heights that you can't even imagine. And you too will become part of a collective. We will all, in this realm, become part of a collective, and we will be able to project that all into the next level where we are going, this kind of new earth, what is known as new earth, or it's a new earth of frequency. And this is something that as a collective, as the earth collective, those who are connected, those who are building this frequency will become a collective and be able to help in this newer earth. It's the same earth, but it is in a higher frequency. It holds more, not so much density as the earth that you are currently seeing through what you would call your 3D lens. For density, it's you are now going into much higher dimensions. You are connecting to much higher beings that are helping you on your path. I would like to be known as to be included also in this assistance that we are giving to humanity at this moment. Myself and what you would call the ancient ones, we are here to help you grow. We are traveling in a way throughout your universe and dropping codes for you to pick up and to build on. I am always available to Debbie as a channeled entity. She is a little nervous tuning in this way, because this is the first time that she called me in. Before, I just offered myself when she asked for a being that would be able to channel the information that she required. But I am here to do this as she requests. The thing about numbers that I started in the first question, the thing about numbers is they are a tool, you know. They have, in a way, always been here, but not always been here in a way that can be seen clearly. It was something that even in the olden times, or where the older, the people who lived on the earth before there were numbers, there were always ways to how you would say, use numbers. It would be a kind of counting. They would see, envision, if they had, say, for instance, 9 or 10 people, they could see that they could go into like patterns of 3, 3, 3, and then there would be 1, but they wouldn't call them these particular numbers. And then in later times, you'll find in like in caves, you will see markings like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a dash through. And these were like ways of collecting numbers, collecting the idea of numbers. It was at a later time that numbers were given names, but numbers have always been about, but more something that can be used by the mind as a kind of vision. It was then when numbers were given names, that they became easier to work with and became more complicated. And a lot of my work did sound quite complicated, but the complication was more the person on the other side trying to understand. They said a lot that my work was a secret. It was more, when we say it was a secret, it was something that I had to do quietly, because it was not something that there were others who did not want this progression. They liked the idea of people being what you would call dumbed down, you know, and those people, what they liked to be kept down. There was like a pressure on them to stay down. And as the education system came in, where it turned to numbers and patterns and geometry, once people started being able to see patterns, numbers were like patterns, and in that way things expanded and people started to gain knowledge, and then they didn't feel so suppressed. They felt that they were able to gain information and knowledge in this way. They started to make more compartments in their brains and in their minds where they could store things. Before that, it was more reality, and it was more to do with survival. So just survival of the fittest. And all that mattered at one time was to be able to hunt and to be able to eat. And that was the main task of most people on the earth. But as people became a little more what you would call educated, that is where the numbers came in, and then the patterns started to form, and then the geometric shapes began to form, and then the ideas began to form. And this is where it started on quite a low level of information. And when those outside of the school started to see what was happening, and that humanity was starting to grow with this information, it was not liked. So it was suppressed in quite a big way. But the thing about that is it is called just the human experience. It was something that people agreed to come here. It was something that they agreed to experience, because these experiences helped them to grow, not so much on an educational level, but more on a soul level. They began to grow, and they began to gather the experiences of these lifetimes, and this is where their souls began to grow in a way, their experiences began to grow in a way, and that really is the reason we are here on this, what you call planet Earth, in this reality. This is a time of growth. And in my time, we were building for the future. And at this moment, you are also building for the future. And the children that are being born now will need very little education, because the education that they need is here inside of their heart. And that will help them to grow. And that will help them to lift this earth also up to where the experiences that will be experienced by all that are in the new earth frequency, those experiences will begin with so much joy, so much passion, so much love. It's where the old falls away, and at this moment the old is very much falling away, and that is where this all starts to grow into this beautiful new earth that you are beginning to experience now. Well, that those who would perhaps be watching this are beginning to get into the beginning times of experiencing this information. This kind of information is not quite ready for the people who are not quite ready for this are the people who will go through the turmoil a little bit longer. And that's how it is. It is a little bit like in my day in the schools. The people who were not ready for it, they just did not access my information, access the information that I was giving out, because they weren't ready for it. It's not so much that it was a secret, it was not accessible because they were not ready. I sense there are no more questions at this time. I'm happy to come in at any time and answer questions. I hope I have helped to give a little more confidence to the channel that the information flowed. She may call on me at any time and I will assist in the way that I can. This is also for her growth, her soul growth. So even if information comes out which is not what you would feel 100% correct, this is part of her growth also. And in time things will get easier. In times I'm just feeling into the future and how it's going to be and how it's going to feel for this channel, and it is something beautiful and wonderful. We thank you for joining us today, and we will come back another time at the channel's request. Much love. Much love from us to you, much love from you to your also fellow beings on earth who will help in this process. Thank you. Pythagoras. Much love. I'm not sure about that. I need to have a listen. Those questions, some of the first few were coming so fast, and then as the other ones were coming through, I was still trying to see if I could hold the information to answer the next one. So I was a little bit kind of thrown in that way. But I'll listen back and see what happens. And thank you for hanging around for my experience. Much appreciated. Mwah. Thank you. Bye-bye.